welcome to meditation and inquiry. And today we will meditate briefly and also inquire into what is suffering and who suffers, and the relationship between personal suffering and world suffering. So I like to begin these inquiries by asking, what does the word suffering mean to you? What does suffering mean? Do you have any thoughts about suffering you would like to share?
Pain.
Pain.
Emotionally or
Physically. Okay, emotional or physical pain?
or even mind.
Well, I would be emotional, yeah, all connected to that. Okay, so emotional, physical pain. Anybody else with any thoughts about suffering?
You feel some voice and it's something you feel it
Hmm.
and then you do it and it's not working. So you suffer.
Okay, so you feel empty and you want to fill the emptiness with something. Okay, so there's desire there, and you find that it doesn't fill the emptiness. Okay, and that can bring about suffering and pain. Okay, pain. Anybody else with any thoughts about suffering?
Think of it as like primary pain, the incident that happened today. Suffering is like the secondary pain where it's like you keep bringing that primary into present and
Ah,
it lives on instead of just letting it sleep.
okay, so there's primary pain in the moment, and then it becomes not dealt with and becomes secondary, and it persists, in other words. Okay, okay. Anybody else? Well, thank you for sharing. And whether you articulated it or just thought about it, that's the beginning of the inquiry. What is suffering? So now's the meditation part. So we'll have a brief meditation. See if we can quiet the mind. So just relax. Just relax your mind and your body. Let go of any concerns you have about the topic suffering. Just be here. Feel the breeze on your body. Just relax and accept it. Hear the sound of my voice, the sounds of the crickets, distant bird, and be aware of your thoughts and your feelings. And let all the sounds and all the physical sensation, thoughts and feelings come. And also let them go. Nothing to hold on to, nothing to focus on. And you're relaxed now, and you're open and accepting of all the sounds, sensations, thoughts, and feelings. No resistance, no rejection, and no holding on, no attachments. Now move your attention a little bit from the sounds, and sensations, thoughts, and feelings. Move attention from them to the one that's aware of them. There is an awareness, a knowing when a thought, sound, sensation arises. So you're now aware of noticing, of observing, of recognizing a sound, a sensation, a thought, a feeling appear and disappear. And with the self-awareness, everything slows down. And there's no attachment, no holding on to anything. And with the slowing down of thinking, there is clarity. A sound is heard clearly. A physical sensation is felt clearly. And a thought is seen clearly. Clear seeing, clarity. Now, from this clarity of self-awareness, see if there's a space between thoughts, a space between sounds, a space between sensations. Look now. See if there's space. If there is, without doing anything, without pushing anything away, relax in space. Let your whole being fall into space. Don't be afraid. Become space between thoughts, between sounds, between physical sensations. sounds, sensations, and feelings are continuing, but slowly, and they're all arising in spaciousness in you. So as this spaciousness and this awareness of what's arising, open up, expand the spaciousness, our space, to spaciousness. Expand it. Let it become vast, immense, with no boundaries, no beginning, no end. Relax and rest in this openness, spaciousness, as we inquire together into what is suffering and who suffers. This is a mindful inquiry, which means I will ask you during the inquiry what you're feeling, how you're relating to the subject. And this topic will be presented in two particular perspectives, two views: the personal suffering and world suffering, and how the two are related. So when we talk about personal suffering, for me it also comes with two views. Pain, as has been mentioned, and suffering. Suffering is a word, it's an umbrella word that covers a multitude of things. It can be something prolonged, depression. It can be something like a cut or an injury. So there is pain, and as was mentioned, pain is immediate. If you hurt yourself, if you cut yourself, then there is an immediate response usually, and it's taken care of. So that's dealing with the pain as it arises and taking care of it, especially in the tropics where you don't want to get a staph infection with an open wound. So there is pain, and pain comes in many forms. The physical pain, as just mentioned, and there is the emotional pain. There is something traumatic, as was mentioned, something traumatic that keeps getting triggered and is felt. And as was mentioned, we can reach out and try and maybe escape from that pain because it's so intense. But we find that there's a saying, what you resist persists. So there's an opportunity to deal with the physical pain, as we mentioned, and the emotional pain. Now, the physical and emotional can be dealt with in the same way. When there is discomfort in the body, there is a story that goes along with it. There is the perception of discomfort, pain in the body, and we all have stories about, I don't want to experience that pain. If it's an injury, yes. But if it's, say, you're sitting in meditation and you get a cramp, or you need to change positions, and the story comes, well, if I don't change positions or do something, I may get severely injured, maybe become a crippled, and the story can go out and out and out about worrying, about this discomfort. And unless I remedy the discomfort, it could cause serious damage. So these are stories that we tell ourselves about discomfort. And most of it is something that has been learned, that we have observed as children about escaping from pain. Possibly we've watched our parents or our peers, and we say, okay, I only want pleasure, I don't want pain. That's a natural tendency, the human condition. So the opportunity is to meet the pain with awareness. Not run away, not escape. To be aware of the story of the pain, that I don't want to experience it. Now this can be emotional pain too, and physical pain. The same story arises. I don't want to deal with it. So if the story is seen, if it's recognized, if there is awareness of the story, like anything else, it can be dropped, it can be put aside, let go of. And then the attention, the awareness goes to the physical manifestation, which is happening in the moment. Because the physical has been avoided. It's always been the story that the attention is given to. So here is the shift. You confront the physical sensation, and you want to inquire, you want to investigate the sensation. Where is it in the body? What does it feel like? Is it round? Is it big? Is it solid? So this is the inquiry, as we are doing now, the inquiry in the moment, mindfully, of exploring the pain. And what can happen is in that desire, that interest in exploring the pain, there's an understanding, and the pain can subside. But there's no guarantees, because that's part of the story. If I do this, well, I will escape the pain, and so forth. It's just wanting to find out what pain is. Not I am in pain, but I am pain in the moment. No separation. No separation. So that's one way to deal with pain, physical pain, aside from the needing to take care of something immediately, of cleaning a cut and so forth and so on. So, but we're talking about, as was mentioned, the primary pain can be dealt with in the moment as it's arising. And it goes back to how we have learned to avoid pain and seek pleasure. And pleasure cannot be had without pain. How would you know that you're feeling pleasure unless you knew what pain was? So pain and pleasure are not separate. How would you know there's pain unless you've experienced pleasure? So the two are together, not separate. One needs the other. And that's sometimes forgotten. So, the pain and pleasure syndrome. And the opportunity is to see they're not disconnected. They are connected, as everything is. So, this is a way, a mindful, meditative way to deal with pain in the moment. In the moment. Now, when the pain is not dealt with, as was mentioned, then it lingers and it festers. And that's when so-called suffering takes place. So, what can be said is pain is immediate, suffering is in time. when that pain is not dealt with in time, it festers and it's suffering. The same pain that there's an opportunity to deal with as it arises each time. And when it isn't dealt with, then we have suffering. Now, it's been shown, studies have shown that when there is terminal illness, that meditation and other alternative methods have caused terminal illnesses to be in remission. So healing is mysterious. There isn't one way to heal something. So what's being presented here is just a particular view of dealing with pain. Meditation, because this is a meditation and inquiry group. So it's the meditation and the mindfulness as a way to deal with it. So far, how are you relating to the subject? Does it make sense to you? Is it too far-fetched? Is it something that you'd be interested in trying? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. So what's your relationship to what's been presented so far? Okay, just checking in, checking in. So, this is personal pain. Pain that can be dealt with at any time with a particular method suggested, and that can prolong into suffering. Now, how this relates to world suffering, we see from the news, we see perceived suffering going on outside of our world. But here's something to consider. The world is a perception, is our perception. Our daily, momentary perception, experience is our world. How we perceive what's going on in our world, with our thoughts, with the people that we interact with everything, with the pain. This is the world as we experience it. Okay? There was a song many years ago in the 80s called "You Are the World" by the late and infamous Michael Jackson now, about you are the world. You change yourself, you change the world. And here, there are all these tools that we can use to understand ourselves and bring about change. So here in this group, we know what tools are available, and we know what change maybe has occurred thus far while you've been here. So again, it's important to consider and realize that the world is what we perceive in any given moment, is the world. So the world there is not our perception, it's somebody else's perception that's presented to us. It's their experience. We see what's going on in some war, we see something terrible happening, or we perceive it's terrible, and it's photographed by a photographer, and there's maybe a reporter that is narrating what's being photographed. Then that is presented to an editor to put it into a time frame that can be presented on the news to you. So it's just a little slice of what is going on out there. So that's not your perception. That's second, third, and fourth hand already by the time you get the information. So how real is it? First of all, the photographer may have a bias in the way he or she is shooting it and wanting to show just something what the photographer says is important. So there's editing going on by the photographer. And then the narrator is saying something. Maybe he or she has a liberal, a conservative bias, and so, but you see that all of this is going on, so-called out there. And then the editor has his or her time frame that has to be put together. So you see, it's going through so many different ideas and people before you are exposed to it. So what's real in there? If you feel you're a very liberal person, then you're going to look for a liberal viewpoint. And if you're conservative, then you'll seek out a conservative perception of events out there. So you see, it's not real. It's just a few people presenting something in their own way. And we really don't know who is suffering and to what degree, because we're not there. We can only realize our own suffering, the direct evidence of the pain here and the possible suffering in time if the pain is not dealt. And that's not to say that if you feel emotionally and distraught about what's going on from the way it's presented and you want to do something, do something. If you feel you want to be active and to want to join the cause or contribute money, I'm not saying don't take action. Just realize that what you're experiencing and how it's being presented to you, and what's the truth in that. The truth is your perception in your life from moment to moment. That's what's real. That's the direct evidence of life unfolding for you from moment to moment. So you see the connection between pain and suffering, and by extension, if we want, in the world. And that's not to say there is not pain or suffering, but it's our perception of it. And one person's pain can be another person's pleasure. Pain is not a universal, disabling phenomenon. We have, for example, we have people who inflict pain on others because they get joy, they get satisfaction from it. And there are people who receive pain because it's joyful and satisfying to them. A case in point is sadomasochism, where people want to experience pain for whatever reason, and people who inflict the pain. So it's kind of a contrast there. And so you might be very upset and horrified at it, but for some people, pain is pleasure. And that's just the wiring of the human being. There is no one way to experience life. There is no one way. And that's important to consider. The diversity of the human form. And to accept that, to accept the diversity of ourselves and how life is expressed through this mind-body organism that we give it a name. And in that acceptance is freedom, is the freedom eventually from pain and suffering. that is awakening. That is awakening to your true nature. That's not that you don't experience some pain in the body, but there's no story to it. I was listening before coming here. A scientist was talking about the illusion of the body. There are 50 trillion cells in the human body. 50 trillion. And all the cells, there's space between these 50 trillion cells. And these cells are kind of semi-automatic. I mean, this is what's happening right now. There are 50 trillion cells doing their thing as we are talking. Can we do anything about the 50 trillion cells? Just another way of realizing how much we can choose and we're controlling what's going on. Okay? When you look at it from that perspective. And there are many ways to look at life. And this topic of suffering is a couple of views are being presented. I'm not saying this is the right or the only or the best view. A particular view is being presented for you to relate to or not relate to. So, again, the important thing that is being mentioned here is there are many views about life. And if you hear the different views about how to live your life, you can be confused. You can be confused. Because there is this view of what to eat, and there is an opposite view that says don't eat this way. So again, when you have a position such as, okay, I'm going to live my life only this way, well, you're going to find opposition because this cannot exist without this. So you start to see that all the different views, they kind of negate each other. Not one is better, not one is truer, not one is superior to another. They're just ways of talking about things. This is how we communicate. But these concepts and ways we talk are constantly changing, aren't they? We have new ways. We have new tools to express new things. So there's this constant change that's taking place. And when you start to see the fluidity and the change that's always going on in our lives, then you see it's not necessary to hold on to any particular view or object to fill the emptiness, as was suggested, to fill the void and realize it can't be filled. So you start to see that all of this attempt to get things, to become something, can be quieted. And in that there can be a realization that all of these things are coming and going. Nothing good or bad about them, they are coming and going. But the awareness of everything that's coming or going is not. It just is. And that realization that we are that awareness, that choiceless awareness, is the freedom, is the awakening, is the awakening. I saw in a description of somebody put together of tonight's topic of suffering, that the opposite of suffering is happiness. That's not my word. I would say the opposite of suffering is freedom. Freedom. Because happiness comes and goes. And again, you need unhappiness. You need to experience that to realize happiness. So freedom is not dependent on unfreedom. It is just the freedom, which we all experience at some times during our daily lives, during our complete lives. But in our haste, we don't realize it because there's no context. There's no, oh, this is what freedom is. Because it's not something that you can hold on to. That's the mystery of awakening freedom. So, what is suffering? Well, as we've suggested, a particular view here is there's pain. If it's not dealt with, then it becomes something over a period of time. I had a mother who, she really enjoyed suffering. Every time I'd call up and say, "How are you, Mom?" she'd give me a list of everything that's going wrong in her life. Pain here, and somebody snubbed her, somebody said something, and her life was just a mess. She was suffering, and she had a lot of physical discomfort, arthritis, and all of that. So she was suffering, and her suffering brought attention. People would, "Oh, poor you," and so forth. So this was an attention getter. And you probably know people in your life, or maybe at some time or another, this is something that you have used as a card for attention. So again, pain, suffering, and it can be seen and dealt with, and it's the opportunity to move through it, to move through it. So, how do you relate to what's been presented? Is it something that you feel you can use to explore pain and suffering? If you have a question, please feel free to. Yes?
So you said that when we feel pain, there's a story attached to it, right? That story is according to our matrix, our expectations and everything. So you said that when we understand the story, we can just maybe let the pain go. What do you mean by understand the story?
Okay, I didn't say understand the story,
Okay.
to see the story.
Okay.
Understanding it is trying to, oh, okay, I'm experiencing this. Does this go back to my childhood? What's the trigger that caused whatever I'm feeling? That's trying to understand all the factors that cause this pain. That's understanding it. And nothing wrong with it. There's psychotherapy, which is a method to deal with the past and traumas from that point. This is just a different approach, saying you can deal with it in the moment. You don't have to go back in your personal history to see when the trauma began, because it's manifesting in the moment, and to deal with it in the moment. Nothing wrong with exploring the past. This is just a different way in saying, in the moment, in a meditative, mindfulness way, is understanding it, but not in understanding it from that way. From, oh, when I was 3 years old, something happened to me. Okay, nothing wrong with that.
Okay, maybe are you referring to understanding the circumstance, maybe like?
Well, that's understanding circumstances. I'm just saying there's a story that says there's pain. I want to understand it, or I don't. I want to move from it. And we usually have escape mechanisms that we use to avoid experiencing the pain. So that story is about the escape mechanisms. And what I'm suggesting is if you see that story clearly, just seeing it, recognizing as you, right now, you're experiencing what? What are you experiencing now in this moment?
Why? I mean, I can feel.
Say again?
I can feel like what's going on here.
Yeah,
The
okay.
temperature, everything.
It, you feel it. Are you trying to understand it or just experience it?
Experience.
Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. Experiencing it without needing to understand it. That's the difference. Okay? Yeah, the difference between understanding and experiencing it without looking for the cause.
Okay, so experiencing the pain would be maybe like everybody said, like letting it go, like maybe expressing and then move on.
No, it's not even that. It's to inquire, explore without wanting to let go of it. It's wanting, what is it? Maybe it will be let go, maybe it won't. But the interest in what it is in the moment. When you look at something that's beautiful, a flower or something, you look at it. That's all. You experience it, and there's nothing that more has to take place, and then that experience. But that's the interest in what's there. So the interest is exploring what is this, where is it? And then bringing your complete attention and awareness to it and seeing what's there. And not attached to whether it's going to go away or not. That's the difference. Okay. Yeah. Please, anybody else?
How can you get to freedom if there is suffer in the world that you can't, no, like you can't do anything with it?
Well, again, the perception you have of suffering, a simple, when you're feeling really happy and accepting of yourself, thank you, when that is taking place, isn't the world a happy place? Isn't that what you see around you in your daily activities? You're feeling good. And when you're feeling not good, isn't that what you see there? Because that's the perception you have of what's going on in your world, and that's projected out there.
I just want something specific, like something bad happened to someone else, and you suffer from it.
But how do you know it's bad for somebody else?
I
It's
was
bad for you.
I had example that I
Okay.
thought yesterday.
Okay, please.
I had amazing day,
Yeah.
and then I opened news,
Yes.
and there was we have holiday in Israel that we celebrate with the fire, and I don't know why, but every year kids burn copies. Like, I don't know, they're curious, they're mean, I
Okay.
don't know, but every year I hate this holiday because every year copies, like, they dump it in the fire, and it makes me suffer, it makes me really sad,
Okay.
and
Yeah. So you
and
see something and there's a trigger, and you feel
but
you
makes me
feel pain.
suffer. No, it's not the story.
It's you that's. But are those people that you're seeing suffering?
No, the
Okay.
animals,
So it's you. You see, you're the one in pain, not them.
the animals, they're in pain.
You don't know what the animals are in. That's what you believe to be happening. You can't talk to an animal. Again, it's always happening here. It begins here. Who you are and how that relates to there. It's not there to here, it's here to there. It always begins here. Yeah. And that's because we we can be overwhelmed by what's happening there. So again, I just caution you to realize that what's happening there is presented to you in a diluted form. It's not your experience, your direct experience. Your direct experience is what's going on in your life from moment to moment. That's the direct evidence. That's the truth of the moment. That's not to say don't pay attention to there. Yeah, go ahead.
Your personal perception, it doesn't make the pain that another being, animal or human, might be feeling any less real or unreal.
No, no, no. It's just a perception. You don't know what somebody else is experiencing. It's only your experience of what you think they're experiencing.
But when it's a question of, like, in this case, physical pain, it's very physical. There is
Yes.
physical pain when you're burned to death. And there's no escaping that, whatever your perception is.
Maybe like a weird example, it's a weird example, but to say like I'm just praying to die and someone comes up and stabs me, I might say, hell yes. You know, I might not be sad at all, I might not feel any pain. But everyone that hear that story didn't know what I was experiencing might say, this poor girl, what pain she may have felt. Where I think that's two things. You never really know what the person is experiencing. You assume, because for you that would be very painful that you're going to die. And to the other person, and I get your point, because yes,
Yeah.
being in pain. But some people maybe wouldn't even mind that. Maybe they were praying for that. You never know. How weird is that?
No, that's true, and I agree. Like where there's how do I put that? Um, if there's pain, there's not necessarily suffering, and even if there's not pain, there might still be suffering. I get that, but okay, that example was just so. I don't know how to escape the fact that there most likely was like a lot of pain for the animals in this case, and I don't know like how my personal mental state would make that very likely pain any less true. But yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, it's only as true as you believe it to be true. That's the difficult thing because we have been taught. We have been taught that the pain that is perceived there is also that it's real for them. We don't know. We're assuming. We're assuming a lot of what's going on there. And it's an assumption. But that assumption becomes a belief. And I'm just saying question these beliefs and assumptions. As we began with the question of who is suffering, pain and suffering. And that's not to say if you experience pain and something you see on television, don't suppress it. I'm not talking about not experiencing whatever you're experiencing. I'm saying experiencing it totally. Experience it. But the difference is to make a story out of it that I need, and maybe you do need to do something about it, or just experience what you're experiencing and let go of it. Let go of it. As was mentioned, to experience the physical discomfort or pain and experience it completely and let go of it. Let go of it. That's the freedom. Not to not experience, not to not have emotions, to really have the emotions unfiltered, to be open to whatever is taking place in a given moment. Not to say I don't want to experience this, I only want this, but to welcome it all, like in the meditation, to be aware of what's ever arising and letting it be. Not necessarily focusing on any one, but being aware of all that's coming and going.
Can we say that the difference between suffering and pain remains in the attention or interest that we afford to the suffering, whereas
Yes, yes, the creation is constantly going on here.
Yeah.
And as was mentioned, the pain is something that's immediate. The suffering is something that is in time, when the pain is not dealt with. That I'm presenting it as something in time, something not separate, connected, but in time. Pain, and then when it's not dealt with in time, it becomes suffering, and that pain keeps reoccurring.
So the pain is like kind of saved then somewhere?
Say again?
How does it happen? Is that like the pain, as it is not truly experienced, it's kind of saved in the body so that it gets transformed into kind of sufferings which is coming
Yeah,
out
what
somewhere?
pain is, we experience all these emotions, pain. And as I mentioned, many of us have learned not to want to experience pain. We have devised ways to escape from dealing with pain. So the opportunity is to see the story of escaping from the pain. And what's being suggested here is, okay, if you are familiar with the story and you see it enough times, the opportunity is to put it aside and bring it to the manifestation in the body of the pain. Because with every thought, there is a concurrent sensation going on in the body. There's no separation between mind and body. So the opportunity in meditation provides an opportunity where the mind stream slows down, so there is a seeing of something different. Yeah. Please, anybody else? Pain has been said is a wonderful teacher. It's great. In its very, very many forms. You know, when you have somebody who irritates you, that person, from the irritation, it triggers so many different emotions for you. That person is a teacher. The opportunity is to see what that person is triggering in you. That's not to say you have to stand there and be in an abusive relationship. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying when there is irritation and frustration, the opportunity is to see just what it feels like. What does it feel like? Frustration, irritation. All of that is meditation in the moment, mindfulness meditation. That's life being lived, unfolding from moment to moment. Please, anybody else? Well, let's conclude with just a few minutes of silence, brief meditation. Just relax. Just relax. Let go of any concerns you have. Again, if possible, let go of everything that's been talked about tonight. Just let it go. Okay? Don't hold on to it. Feel the breeze from the fans, from the ocean, the sound of the waves. If there are any bodily sensations, allow everything to arise. Without focusing on anything. Just being with everything. Relaxed, open, accepting. relax and rest in this openness. Namaste. Thank you.